In the year 3600 BC, deep within the golden sands of ancient Egypt, a powerful mutant named En-Sabah-Ner reigns as a god worshipped by his people. He commands the most advanced civilization of its time. Hey guys, this is Netflix Recaps and you are watching X-Men Apocalypse. Let's get into it. Apocalypse powers isn't just political, it's supernatural, with abilities like telekinesis, cyberpathy, teleportation, and the power to amplify other mutants. He is practically unstoppable, yet even gods grow old. To maintain his rule, he performs a sacred ritual, transferring his consciousness into the body of a younger, healing factor enhanced mutant, granting himself immortality. But this time something goes wrong. Just as the transfer begins, a secret rebellion unfolds. His own guards, fearing his unchecked power, turn against him. Massive stone pillars collapse, cutting off sunlight, which disrupts the ritual before it can finish. His most loyal followers, the Horsemen of Apocalypse, rush to defend him, sacrificing their lives as the entire pyramid crumbles. In a last act of loyalty, one of his warriors encases his new body in a protective shell, saving him from the destruction but entombing him beneath the ruins for thousands of years. Fast forward to 1983, a bright school day in America. Inside a high school classroom, Scott Summers sits at his desk, struggling with a deep burning sensation behind his eyes. He tries to ignore it, but when a classmate mocks him, he rushes to the restroom. One classmate follows him and starts banging at doors. Suddenly an uncontrollable blast of red energy erupts from his eyes, obliterating a bathroom stall and sending debris flying. Terrified and confused, he stumbles back. Meanwhile, his older brother Alex Summers immediately recognizes what's happening. His little brother is manifesting his mutant ability. Knowing Scott is now a ticking time bomb, he takes him to Professor Charles Xavier's school for gifted youngsters in Westchester, New York, to ask Professor for help. Professor asks to shoot a target across the small lake, but accidentally Scott cut down the tree that Professor's grandfather planted. Now Scott will learn to control his new powers. In the bustling streets of Cairo, Egypt, a young pickpocket named Aurora Monroe blends into the crowd. With her ability to manipulate the weather, she uses a small gust of wind to distract a vendor swiping food for herself and her struggling family. She believes she's just a street thief, but fate has bigger plans for her. One of CIA agent finds a tunnel that leads to ruins of ancient Egypt. There she finds a group of people. A long-lost cult dedicated to Apocalypse finally uncovers his hidden tomb. Unknowingly, they trigger his awakening by allowing a single beam of sunlight to shine through the cracks in the ruins. The long-dormant En-Sabah-Ner stirs, his eyes glowing with unnatural power as his ancient consciousness finally takes control of his new host. Disoriented by the modern world, he wanders the streets and stumbles upon Aurora, who used her power to steal some money. Sensing her potential, he decided to help her by killing people who stoked her for stealing money at her home. He touches TV screen and learns all the languages to get his 4 horsemen. He decided to use her as one of horsemen. With a mere touch, he enhances her powers. Her white hair flows like a storm, lightning crackles around her and she feels a surge of energy unlike anything she's known. She is now his first horseman, Storm. Meanwhile, in East Berlin, an underground mutant fight club thrives in the shadows. The audience cheers wildly as Angel, a mutant with large, feathered wings, takes center stage, locked in a brutal battle with a strange blue-skinned mutant named Kurt Wagner. Nightcrawler, a teleporter with fast reflexes, dodges Angel's deadly aerial attacks, but the crowd demands blood. The fights aren't just for sport, they're to the death. Before the final blow lands, a mysterious figure emerges from the shadows. It's Raven, aka Mystique. She has been tracking this fight club and, disgusted by how mutants are treated, intervenes just in time to rescue Nightcrawler. She smuggles him out with the help of a black market mutant trafficker named Caliban, arranging for Nightcrawler to be taken to Xavier's school for safety. Far away in Poland, a man named Eric Lencher has left his past behind. Once feared as Magneto, he now lives a peaceful life with his wife Magda and their young daughter Nina. He works at a steel factory, keeping his powers a secret, but one fateful day disaster strikes. A workplace accident nearly kills a co-worker, and in a split-second instinct, Eric uses his powers to save the man's life. The act exposes his identity. That night, local authorities arrive at his home, bows drawn demanding his surrender. Fearing for his family, Eric tries to reason with them, but his daughter, in a panic, accidentally reveals her own mutant abilities by summoning birds. The soldiers panic, and in the chaos, one of them releases an arrow that kills both Magda and Nina. Eric falls to his knees in silent horror before his grief explodes into rage. In one swift motion, he pulls his daughter locket and impales them all. The peaceful life he built is shattered. Magneto is reborn, broken and filled with rage. Eric decided to kill his co-workers for exposing his identity. Before he takes any action, stands a mysterious figure. En-Sabah-Ner appears. He killed all his co-workers in a blink of eye. With piercing eyes and a voice dripping with ancient authority, Apocalypse speaks softly but powerfully. You have suffered, but now you will be reborn. Eric is skeptical. He's seen too many false promises before, but Apocalypse places his hand on Eric's shoulder and suddenly they vanish in a swirl of dust, reappearing in an even darker place. Auschwitz. The air is thick with sorrow. The ruins of the concentration camp where Eric first discovered his mutant abilities as a child still stand as a reminder of his suffering. Apocalypse leads him forward. "This is where your pain began," he says. Then with a mere thought he enhances Eric's powers, expanding his ability beyond anything he's ever known. Eric lifts his hands, and the very earth trembles as he reaches into the deepest layers of metal in the soil, tearing the camp apart piece by piece. The destruction is terrifying. Now he is no longer Eric Lencher, he is one of the horsemen of Apocalypse. Meanwhile, Apocalypse recruits Psylocke, a fierce mutant with psychic energy blades, an angel whose broken feathered wings are transformed into razor-sharp metallic blades. Together with Storm and Magneto, they complete the Four Horsemen, the most dangerous team the world has ever seen. Back at Xavier's school, Professor X senses a great disturbance. The immense power of Apocalypse ripples through the world, disturbing the psychic plane. Xavier and Beast discuss the rising danger, while new students including Scott Summers and Jean Grey train to harness their abilities. Jean, struggling with her terrifying psychic visions, wakes up in a cold sweat seeing flashes of the world in flames. Raven arrives at the school bringing Nightcrawler to safety, but her presence isn't just a casual visit. She warns Xavier that Magneto has resurfaced and might be in trouble. Xavier, using Cerebro, locates Magneto, but the second he does, Apocalypse hijacks the connection. "You are but a child playing with forces you do not understand." Apocalypse's voice echoes in Xavier's mind. The entire world's nuclear arsenal is suddenly launched into space, disarming every major country. Apocalypse has neutralized humanity's only means of defense. The world is now his. Xavier told Havoc to destroy Cerebro before Apocalypse takes full control of his mind and world. Suddenly Apocalypse and his horsemen invade Xavier's school and chaos erupts as Xavier's students scramble for safety. Havoc attacks Apocalypse, causing a massive explosion, but Apocalypse is unfazed. Instead he teleports away with Xavier disappearing into thin air, but the attack has left a devastating consequence. Havoc's blast ignites the school's power core, triggering an explosion that destroys the entire mansion as the school detonates in a massive fireball. A blur of silver streaks through the destruction. Peter Maximoff, aka Quicksilver, using his super speed, he zips through the burning debris in slow motion, plucking students out of harm's way, shifting falling objects, and even taking the time to sip a soda mid-rescue. In a matter of seconds he evacuates almost the entire school, but there's one person he can't save: Havoc. The explosion took him first. As the dust settles, military forces arrive led by Colonel William Stryker, a ruthless soldier with a vendetta against mutant. Stryker's forces seize Hank, Mystique, Quicksilver and Moira MacTaggert, taking them to a high-security military base. Meanwhile, Scott, Jean, and Nightcrawler, who managed to secretly infiltrate Stryker's facility to rescue their friends. As they navigate the cold steel corridors, they stumble upon something horrifying: a cage containing a wild, rage-filled beast covered in metal. Weapon X, it's Wolverine, but he's not the man they know. His mind has been erased, leaving him a savage killing machine. Jean uses her psychic powers to unlock fragments of his lost memories, and in an instant Wolverine erupts into a berserker fury, tearing through Stryker's soldiers with animalistic brutality. The trio escapes the facility with their allies, but Wolverine, lost in his own mind, disappears into the wilderness in Cairo, Egypt. Apocalypse builds a massive pyramid using Magneto's enhanced abilities to manipulate Earth's magnetic poles, causing global destruction as buildings collapse and cities fall into chaos. Apocalypse begins the final phase of his plan, transferring his consciousness into Xavier's body to gain his telepathic powers and control the minds of every human. On the planet, the X-Men arrive in Cairo ready for war. A full-scale battle erupts. Cyclops unleashes devastating optic blasts. Storm and Quicksilver take on Psylocke, and Nightcrawler teleports into the pyramid to save Xavier. In Pyramid, one of his horsemen attacks Nightcrawler and fight ensues. He trapped Angle in iron cage and saved Xavier in mid-process, which makes Apocalypse furious. He starts calling for Xavier to stop hiding and fight him, but Xavier is unconscious. X-Men starts attacking him. Quicksilver uses his fast speed to attack Apocalypse, but Apocalypse use his powers to trap Quicksilver in sand and then broke his leg. Apocalypse calls Xavier, "You can't hide, we are connected to each other," which gives idea to have telepathic fight with him. In first, Xavier dominates the battle, but suddenly Apocalypse takes control. Meanwhile, Jean, still unsure of her full power, hesitates until Xavier, locked in a telepathic battle with Apocalypse, urges her, "Let go." After defeating Xavier in telepathic battle, he begins to take his body, and suddenly Magneto blocked his path with iron beams. Jean finally unleashes her her full potential. The power of the Phoenix. A blinding surge of fiery energy erupts from her body, engulfing Apocalypse. He tries to escape, but Storm used her power to strike Apocalypse. He screams in agony as his body disintegrates, his final words fading into the wind. All is revealed. With the world saved, Magneto decide to walk separate paths. Magneto, despite Xavier's invitation to stay, refuses and says his war isn't over yet. Meanwhile, the X-Men rebuild their school and a new generation of mutants steps forward. Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Nightcrawler, and Quicksilver. As the sun sets on Xavier's mansion, the team stands together in uniform. The X-Men are reborn. Hope you liked this video. If you did, then click on these pictures to watch other video.